What's up, everybody? Welcome on Into One Soccer. Today, Andy Petrillo, Jordan Wilson, Gareth Wheeler with you. Guys, come on. We just have a few more days left of February. Let's go March. We are so excited. Warmer weather, right? Longer days, and the Canadian men back in action. So we're very excited about this, right? So we know we have CONCACAF Nations League, and the preliminary roster has been announced by Canada Soccer. Jesse Marsh, 60-player preliminary roster ahead of those matches in March. And there's a lot of noteworthy names, but we're going to focus on a couple of them. Two in particular, as we know, caught our attention. Jebbison and Promise David, two high-caliber players that have now officially committed to Canada, guys. So how do these two players, do you think, we also start with you, how do you think they raise the Canadian men's national team ceiling? And then here's kind of a juicy topic for you. Do you think any of them are going to challenge Kyle Larin in the starting 11?
Well, let's start off with dual nationals in that topic. I mean, this is the ideal time to jump aboard with the Canadian men's national team and go on and make that decision. We are, a year and a half out, less than that, to the World Cup. The entire talk of boycott, CBA, that sort of thing when it comes to the players, that conversation, not around anymore. No one's really reporting on it, even though it hasn't been signed. So the distractions are done. You have a new manager in that's well-liked. So the past is the past, and the present looks pretty decent when it comes to this team, as the foot's going to be on the pedal over the next few months. So really, this is the time to go on and declare for the Canadian men's national team. And I really suspect that others will also do the same over the next 8 to 12 months as well. When it comes to Daniel Jebbison, this is nothing new. I think I've been reporting on this right here on One Soccer for the last 3 years. Jebbison was always planning on becoming a Canadian men's national team player. I documented the path before. Like, this started under John Herdman, but he had to get his own professional career on track to became a little bit of a nomad after bursting on the scene with Sheffield United. He still hasn't really kind of found his sea legs yet, but with the World Cup knocking and a manager wanting him to be part of the project, I just don't think he was in a position to say no any longer. He's a player that, with Bournemouth, although he's playing in the Premier League, hasn't played more than 21 minutes in a game for Bournemouth. It's a little bit concerning because you want your players playing, right? There's no doubt that Jebbison's a talent. He's someone that you want part of your project going forward, but he's not playing regular football. And Bournemouth lost both of their center forwards, their number 9s, through injury right when the transfer window was closing, and didn't address that. And Jebbison hasn't been receiving minutes. So I think Jebbison's more of a longer term play. I think that Kyle Larin is still the top goal scorer in Canadian men's national team history. It's going to take something to supplant the player. Same thing with Promise David. He's burst onto the scene, a little bit of a late bloomer at 23. It's been an outstanding year. He has 13 goals in all competition, although 5 of those have come from the penalty spot. But we've seen this, whether it be Theo Bair or Oluwaseyi or others who have come into the Canadian men's national team and really kind of not being able to supplant or push Larin out of that position. So we need to see what he looks like when he puts on the red and white. He puts on the Maple Leafs. Certainly it's been an outstanding season, and he's a great player to have on board, especially in terms of depth as you build this program out. But to suggest that either one of these players is ready to push Kyle Larin out of the starting 11, that for me is very premature. So we need to see the way that things play out.
Jordo?
Who can push out Kyle Larin when he understands exactly how Jesse Marsh wants to play in this philosophy? I think people question just his goal output. And I think that for strikers, unless you're scoring regularly every single time, is up for question. I will say about the two players that come in, Promise David and Jebbison. Wheels is so right, and he hasn't been reporting on Jebbison, but he had the opportunity to play for Jamaica, England. For me, a little bit of a stretch. No disrespect to the player, but that's just a fact. Everyone would want to go and play for England, but go and play for England at a World Cup. Or play for Canada, the newest, hottest thing around. And you're also Canadian, grew up here. It's a no-brainer. Like, it was already written, and then you have Marsh obviously trying to court you, and it was at the game on the weekend as well. But Wheels is right about specifically the 89th minute, Jebbison subbing on this weekend, and they lost 1-0. That's the type of minutes that he's getting. He's getting like the last bit, the scrapes, when you want to really – how much can you really show by going into that last bit? So playing regular football is obviously the main priority. But when I think about Promise David, this is exciting for me because of just his stature and the power that he brings. 20th minute, or sorry, the 70th minute, 20 minutes left in the game. You have someone like that popping on the pitch, Trills, with that much power and then is able to find the back of the net. I think he's going to get significant minutes. I'm just not here and able to say that he's going to bump out Kyle Larin now and even before 26, but maybe in the future. But I still think that's his spot to lose.
Listen, the last time that Jebbison played over 1,000 minutes was like 2021, 2022 in League One when he was on loan. Like he needs to play regular football again. Like I see a bright future with Jebbison in the Canadian men's national team, but we're talking about now. And right now, he's not in a position to do that. Jesse Marsh rates the player. It's a great addition to this group, no doubt. But he needs to be in a position where he's playing on a regular basis at the highest level possible to push a player like Kyle Larin.
Yeah. And I know you never want to give like a legacy spot to somebody, but Kyle Larin is still a strong player. Kyle Larin is somebody who deserves that role. So he should be your first choice until something happens, until he's either not producing on a regular basis, not producing, and other people just start to pass him. But right now, that is Kyle Larin's position. Of course, what we all question is that Jesse Marsh has introduced a new style of play. It's the high press, and we just wonder who fits into that, who doesn't. But I think we still need to see a lot more here from Jesse Marsh and his players, in particular Kyle Larin, to just turn around and say, oh yeah, you're done, because he's earned the right to be the go-to guy for Jesse Marsh at the moment. But this is why you name these players. This is why they come on board, because clearly something's being said to them for them to believe they are going to have a role on this team and they are going to have the ability to show their coach that they can have a role on this team. Preliminary roster, 60 players, right? So that's a lot, guys. What else stands out from this roster, Jordan, when you take a look at it? Any other names jump out from the page?
I mean, the 60-man roster, a lot of people get excited for. I think it's still it's something to it's something to commemorate.
Listen, it's
and to
a big
be good about.
It just went
60 is a big number, man. However, for little old Shola Jimo, who hasn't even played a dozen games professionally, to be in this mix, it's a feel-good story, right? Like if you're watching the Canadian Premier League and York United this past season, a player like that to come on, like who's saying that he's nervous at school before he goes and plays a professional game, and now he's in the 60-man roster. Like for someone like that, you feel for a guy and you're rooting for him to go as far as he can. I will say that Jesse Marsh rates him highly, and that the Gold Cup this summer is not a far reach for Shola Jimo. He has to do everything right, and in a way, when you're a young player, you have to show that you're ready. You can't be like, oh, I'm young and I still have a lot to learn. You have to take that information that you get and make sure you apply it every day in training. But a player like that getting on the 60-man, also Poku, Crazy Poku getting on there as well. These are just feel-good stories from the CPL and what it means to play regular football. And these players are doing that, and they're showing what they can do.
Yeah, it's young players that stand out to me. Dermercy Michel, that's interesting. Jovan Ivanisevic, a player from London, Ontario, who, for whatever reason, Toronto FC didn't want him. Now he's signed on in terms of the Bologna under-20 side. Players that are playing overseas are getting a look. I find players like that very interesting. It's also maybe what isn't part of that list. I just think that the two areas of depth where there's positions to be won maybe remain a little bit thin or have question marks around it. Goalkeeping for me is absolutely one of them, a position that's up for grabs ahead of 2026. Does Tom McGill slide in? I mean, he has to be intriguing based on the way that he's been playing. I wonder if he eventually gets a look. Swiderski's a young goalkeeper as well, but there's not much depth beyond that. Same thing with central midfield. It's an area where I think that this team could improve in terms of their depth. Nathan Saliba, I've been on this for well over a year now. This is a player that, for me, has the highest ceiling of them all. Out of the players that aren't established, because Ismail Kone is obviously part of that mix as well. But that next tier, who are those young players in the midfield areas that are going to push on the first team? I'm just not quite sure if those players are there as of right now. That's about all. I'm kind of like Jordan, like the 60-man list. It's like my to-do list on the weekend, and I might get to the first third of it. Then beyond that is wishful thinking, right? And I kind of feel the same way about 60 players being named.
Oh man, you need to work harder to get through that to-do list. I cannot imagine wifey is happy with you. All right, how are we feeling? Are we happy with the performance of the Canadian women's national team at the moment? As we know, they're in Spain competing in the Pinatar Cup, 2 games under their belt, 1 more to go. under new head coach Casey Stoney. It was a 1-1 draw against China, 2-0 victory over Mexico. They ended up going down a player. Mexico, 2 yellows and a red for one of their players. So we've seen some great stretches by this Canadian team. Again, they've had this incredible undefeated streak that's going on right now, but we've also seen some sloppy play. And I don't know if that's just par for the course under new head coach who's also playing some players, Jordan, starting them, new minutes, different kinds of chemistry, dynamic duos, whatever it is that she's trying to do at the moment. Maybe sometimes I can explain some of that play, but what's just been your early assessment overall under the new head coach?
I mean, a tad bit underwhelming, I'd say, watching the 2 first matches against China and then Mexico. I made a comment post-game after they beat Mexico in terms of, I understand this is a new system and this is a new coach and this is the first time you guys are getting together under a new manager, and there's a lot of things that could be different. Some players in preseason, different stages right now in the season. But I feel like this team knows each other. There should be chemistry booming. There's so much that they've gone through, so many changes as well, that you just want to see a little bit more. And maybe that's just me on the outside looking in. I'm not saying that it's terrible, but I'm just saying that I expect them, even though I have no clue what the Pinatar Cup looks like, but I expect them to win that. Because out of China, Mexico, and Chinese Taipei, Canada, regardless of coach or new system, should be well ahead of these countries. I guess the beauty of this little window and having 3 games and not 2 and actually competing for something is the fact that there have been players that have stepped out of themselves and made sure that Casey Stoney cannot ignore them. One being Gabby Carl. I think she's had an exceptional time. I thought she played great down the right side and the left side and just showed what it is when you have a new coach, a new blood on you. It's one of those, Andy, I know you can resonate with this one. First day of school, when you have the fresh kicks or you're fresh, you're excited to show it off. This is your time. Gabby Carl really took that in stride. And Emma Regan, going to be at AFC Toronto. Definitely, I'm looking forward to her bossing the midfield, but she's bossing the midfield internationally as well and showing that she's ready. And again, a player that went to Hobie Koo and Denmark, played prime minutes, but she's showing that midfield could be hers. I guess that's those are probably the bright spots. Obviously, Olivia Smith doing what she does and showing that she's great on corners and set pieces. But I just want to see more names, Trills, because this is what that time is about. I shouldn't just be picking 3. I want to be picking 7, 8 at this time, especially based on the competition. They should be blowing them out of the water.
Okay, so having said that, where it does feel like they're at this awkward stage, right? You have a team where a lot of these players have been together. They should hit the ground running, but at the same time, you do have a new head coach who's probably putting players in certain positions they either haven't played in before, or she's giving players starting minutes that haven't had them before. So there's some experimenting going on. So, Wheels, with one more game to go, how are you feeling right now? Should Canada just say, all right, like Casey Stoney's like, this is my best 11. We're going to go out and win this. Or should she keep experimenting? And then even if she's experimenting, should this team go out and win it? I believe you're muted, my friend.
They should win it. Really, when you go in when you go in and play any game, you're playing to win the game. Nice. You're playing to win the game.
Yes.
But in terms of hey, we're going to bring the Pinatar Cup back to Canada.
I want it.
Honestly, who cares?
I do.
What does the cup look like? That doesn't matter at all. What you want to see is encouraging performances. So I agree with Casey Stoney in that respect. It's more about the process here. It's not just this tournament. It's the upcoming schedule for this group of players. They need to show progress. There needs to be more attacking answers in this team. If I'm a Canadian fan, I'm really positive because this team doesn't lose games. They're on this incredible run in games that they don't lose. I'm thrilled the fact that Vanessa Gilles remains an attacking threat, but should she really be the biggest attacking threat on this team? But it seems like she is. Vanessa Gilles is an incredible player, center back defensively. This team is as good as any in international football. It's about what they can get out of their attacking players. And for me, it just all remains underwhelming. I'm not putting that on Stoney. This isn't her. She's 2 games in. You're playing one of the games, for an hour just about. You're playing a player up against Mexico. The China game was I haven't learned much here. It's good to see new players come into the mix and state their claim. These are the positives. The manager needs games like this in order to instill her philosophy, her expectations in the way to play. That's what the group is getting out of these games and the practice time in between. The results should come along with positive play, but it's not a necessity right now. Like, it's just the priority is the process, as boring as that sounds.
Trails, I get that, and I agree. But can they lift up, regardless of what the Pinatar look like? It could be a plaque. It could be a medal. It could be a ribbon.
Why are we obsessing over this trophy?
What is this?
I just want to know.
Yeah,
what is a Pinatar? I don't care, but it'd be nice to have a feel-good moment.
It's the place.
I agree. I agree with the progress. Everyone knows. But can they have something that shows that, look, we are the best team out of 4 at a time, and do all those things simultaneously? 2 things can be true. I care about the progress,
but big picture, Canada's what, 6th in overall in the FIFA rankings. China's 17th, and it goes down from like Chinese Taipei is like 43. It's just when it comes to the competition that they're going to be playing and expect to play against and beat in the coming years. I mean, this is just like testing the water. You're dipping your toes in the pool before you dive in. That's what this is about. And Stoney's going to learn a lot about the players, the way they conduct themselves, the way that they can adapt to her style of play. Again, the process, is what matters here more than the results. I agree with her.
It's a legitimate cup. It is a nice looking cup.
Well done, Chills.
I guess here's the thing, right? That's why I said it's this kind of funky fork in the road for the women, because yes, it's about the process. Casey Stoney, when she was first introduced to the media, and I fully asked her, what is the challenge? Because here you are, you're taking over in a year where there's really nothing up for grabs, right? And she actually relished it, because this is where she really wanted to try all these different things with her players. She wanted to try different players in different positions, and she wanted to try different formations. So she's getting to do that. But I also think that as a nation, we want our team winning. And if they don't win this, I think there's going to be some real disappointment. So I want that Pinatar Cup. Okay?
Get the cup.
That's all I have to say. And to your point about players needing minutes, needing to play, it has also been announced Adriana Leon has made the move back to the NWSL San Diego. She has now been transferred from Aston Villa, so she will be in NWSL San Diego.
Oh, it was weird that she was in with camp and her team was playing. Like, it just didn't really make any sense. So that makes a whole lot more sense.
So there you go. Minutes. That's what they need. All right, let's turn our attention now to Major League Soccer. Week 1 is in the books. CF Montreal, they conceded in the 85th minute, guys, to lose 3-2 at Atlanta. Toronto FC scored a 70th minute equalizer for Bernadeschi, PK, 2-2 against DC United. And the Vancouver Whitecaps, they took care of business against Portland. 4-1, Portland went down early to 10 men. So let's talk some big takeaways from each match. And let's start with Vancouver. They were the big winners there, 4-1. Jordan, what's your big takeaway from the Whitecaps 4-1 road win?
Jaden Nelson, I get it. Man down, I get it. You're playing Portland, not the greatest squad. I get all those things. But the part that I want to highlight is Wheels. We covered him on Thursday where he fell asleep on a throw-in. And I won't say it's completely his fault, but he had a huge part to play in.
At least.
Partially. When you're looking at film, he's a guy that probably has his head like this. He's not up to, I was involved. He was involved. He could have been better on the play. That's the last time we see him. Then you go on Sunday, and he was there. He was there here in the chest, and he was there here. And then the legs were also moving as well, Trills, when you're looking at the goals and all that he was doing. I just like the response, because when a player like him doesn't work at TFC, he feels a bit snake-bitten. Norway doesn't work, goes to Germany, doesn't have a great time, comes back. This is a new lease on life. And you want to see that in Costa Rica when they played. But he came up on Sunday and showed it. And if you're looking at the goals, of course, Crepeau gives him a bit of a gift for the first one. He still has a lot to do to give it to Gold and finish it. But on all these actions, he was there and he was present and he's playing his best football. And homeboy, the third goal, the wheels, I knew he was quick. I didn't know he was that fast. For him to do that 70-yard kind of little go outside and come in and then set up Atakubi, it was nice. I love that there were so many Canadian players that had a big moment. Obviously, Kamal Miller and Crepeau wasn't their best time, but still, it was a great feeling for
No,
the
Kamal
Canadian
Miller was the
perspective.
one who got the red.
He did.
Yeah.
I didn't want to put him out there. He got the
early.
red. I was like,
That was
yeah.
him.
But great time for Jaden
Alright.
Nelson. I'm glad he stepped up.
Okay.
Well, there's no doubt that Jaden Nelson is a talent. No one has ever denied that. And this game, what you hope can propel him, give him confidence and propel him to really get off to a good start with Vancouver Whitecaps this time around. But it's the consistency that's been the issue. You need to see that week in, week out, going both ways. The game was kind of like a mess after the early sending off, and the Timbers, it has to be said. If I'm Max Crepeau, if I'm Zach McGraw, if I'm Kamal Miller, like they lost their best player in Evander over the offseason. Now they played back-to-back games against the Whitecaps and lost 9-1 on aggregate. Like that team looks to be shaky. There's a lot of bad teams in MLS. I think Portland isn't a good team. By the way, Vancouver Whitecaps, MLS experts put them 14th in the Western Conference to start the season. Like it was just
14th.
Pure disrespect. 14th out of 15th, like pure disrespect to the Whitecaps. That's starting 11, guys. It's a good starting 11 for the Whitecaps, and they have a little bit of depth. I still think they need another midfield player, but I think the Whitecaps are a good enough team to, fourth, fifth in the Western Conference. That's their ceiling to me, but it's achievable.
Canadians all over that game, by the way. Jaden Nelson making it perfectly clear he wants to be back on the national team radar. And here's the thing, MLS Communications did put out that he became just the second player in club history to record at least 3 assists and score in the same game since Alphonso Davies, 2018. When it comes to Toronto FC, what's your biggest takeaway there, Wheels?
They looked okay from an attacking perspective. I believe it was around a 1.9 expected goals in that game, and they looked a more well-rounded unit than I thought they were going to be. Simorancic is a player who impressed. I'm not sure if he's a left-sided player in the 4. I think he's more of a central midfield player. It was an experiment. I think it worked out okay, but the player certainly brings something to the table. I think this team, just watching them play, and my biggest criticism of TFC under John Herdman, they had their plan A in terms of the way they were going to attack, and then nothing much after that. The attack was much more dynamic. It felt like the players were more free. I think that Robin Fraser's a really good manager and will get the most out of this group. I just question the depth and how far they can go down. The center backs, for me, I think that they might have a difficult time coming up against better teams. Again, in my theme of the first week in Major League Soccer, there's a lot of bad teams. DC United is not a good team, guys. It is a bad team. So stiffer challenges ahead, but TSC did perform better than I thought they would through match number 1.
All right. Let's go to CF Montreal, Jordan, and your biggest takeaway from their 3-2 loss to Atlanta.
I thought it was a great effort for a first match, to be honest. Obviously, the goals that Atlanta scored as well, specifically the last one. Like that one's just tough to start the season with. But a few things stick out. When I saw Owusu make the cross, left foot cross, and I see Nathan Saliba put the ball in the back of the net as well. I'm looking at Owusu, who is probably maybe happy to get out of Dodge with TFC and has now had a good first performance. But then a young player that Wheels has been raving about, and everyone who's been talking about Nathan Saliba, I can see why. Because he's a dynamic player. And I look at this team built off of youth. If they can just have that harmony and really dig in, like this is a team for me that could do well. Like playoffs is definitely on the table. But it's just finding that rhythm. But I enjoyed that match. Even looking back on the highlights, I mean, it's exciting. But as I said, the goals are special.
Just want Montreal had a 3.5 expected goals in that game, more expected goals than Atlanta. And these are kids that are playing for this team, like Clark, Saliba, Marshall Ruddy, Duke, Alvarez. Like this team is so young. They play to their strengths. Don't sleep on CF Montreal. Honestly, like that Atlanta team, they're attacking 5 or 6. Latte Lath, Lubinese, Moranchuk, Almiron, Klitsch, Slits. Like those are all established internationals. Like that Atlanta team is going to be near the top of the Eastern Conference, if not right there. And the fact that Montreal went there game number 1 and pushed them to the limit, like I really like this CF Montreal team, guys.
Well, let's stick with CF Montreal, Wheels, because there are reports that they're getting ready to sign CPL U21 Player of the Year, goalkeeper Emil Gazdov. Obviously, it goes without saying, great story for the CPL, Canada Soccer. Give me your overall thoughts on that move, Wheels.
Love it. Good for CF Montreal's Corey Ray. Continues to be a person in Major League Soccer who uses the Canadian Premier League and Canadian players as a resource, whether it was Mo Farsi down in Columbus, Russell Rowe out of the TFC Academy, becoming a real key component of that Columbus Crew team. Now coming to Montreal, he pulls off the Marshall Ruddy trade. He goes to get Gazdov. He brings back Luke Turi. Like, he has an eye for talent that needs an opportunity across Canadian soccer. Gazdov makes sense. He can push the other Canadian contingent of goalkeepers there. He's big. His profile's good. I'm wondering why other teams didn't make the move for Gazdov. Seemed to be worth the risk for me. Allow him time to establish himself for me, he has a high potential as well. So it's another move of many that just makes sense. CF Montreal is on it. They deserve some recognition for what they're doing, and I think it's going to pay off for them.
I just like that the hesitation, in my opinion, is subsiding. Like the whole MLS, we're going to look into the CPL. Is this player really there? In modern football, what you want to see with players is their potential, but then consistency. Guess what? There are 28 games that happen throughout a season that are all, majority of them are very interesting. I will say Vancouver Pacific last season, maybe not so much. But some teams, you're like, it happens. However, 90% of the games, me and Wheels were at the edge of our seats, and you can watch these players develop. You can buy cheap, sell high, whatever it is, it's right there. So I like how that hesitation is kind of going away, because look at the players that have gone on to play in the MLS. Mm-hmm. Like, they didn't leave, they stayed. They're quality players.
Yeah. And you are seeing more of this, right, where it is a little like, okay, CPL, that's really a place that we can – I think it's being talked about a little bit more. Not to say that it hasn't been there. I mean, there's a couple of years ago, obviously, Toronto FC with Pacific, both Caden Chung and Lucas McNaughton. As we know, Lucas McNaughton's still playing in MLS. Like, we've seen it before. It just seems to definitely be within the circles, MLS circles, far more discussed of like, oh yeah, we're going to look at the CPL. Like, it's a no-brainer now.
Most teams, not all. Most teams, not all.
At least the Canadians.
I say more now. Yeah.
Yeah. But that, to your point, though, there, Wheels, about Corey Ray. This is somebody who went from TFC to Columbus to CF Montreal. You're seeing his fingerprints over utilizing the pathways and the economic system here, when it comes to soccer in this country. So that's one person who's definitely doing that. Okay, guys.
Good for Gazdov, too. Well done.
Yeah.
Shout out to the boy.
At the end of the day, it's the player's play that got him that. So, yes, that good for him. He did some work there to get that recognition. Let's get to our Tony Bet top picks. Let's go Champions League for our Tony Bet top picks, guys. And it's 2 questions. Who do you think is going to win it all? And team, given the odds, would you bet on to win it all? Yeah, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, Arsenal. Wheels, what you got?
Well, I love this format. I think the draw made things even more interesting heading into the final 16 here. The knockout phase was awesome. Bye-bye, City! Thrilled that Man City's out of this thing. I mean, some of the favorites have got really tough draws, like PSG, Liverpool, Bayern Munich, Leverkusen, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, a little bit of a derby there. Going to stay away from all of them. For me, the best value is at Barcelona. I believe it's plus 478 to go on and win it. They play Benfica, who they played in the last round of this competition. They have the kindest path. They play Dortmund or Lille, whoever survives that. Then that's a decent enough pathway to the semifinal. I think Barcelona can go on and win this. They are my pick. They are my play. They are my hope.
Do you agree, Jordo?
I agree that Barca has the kindest pathway, but I think the team, even though their pathway, I'm curious to hear what Wheels has to say, but the hardest pathway for sure is Real Madrid. Like, what they have to do to go and win it, but I still think they can win it. But maybe this has a lot to do with how I am in the Galacticos, and I feel like, by the time they get to the final, they're going to go and they'll be like, this is the team we're playing. We already beat these teams. But basically go and play Atletico Madrid, who I think is solid. And then what is it, Wheels? The winner, they play the winner.
Arsenal,
Liverpool.
PSV, and Arsenal.
Be nice.
Please.
Be nice.
So they'll take care of Arsenal, but I think they play Liverpool though, no? And
well, they're in the same side of the bracket, but Liverpool needs to get back PSG, and there's no hotter team in European football right now than Paris Saint-Germain. So I think that's going to be a tough one.
They'll deal with them though. The Galacticos. I'm putting money on Real Madrid.
You went all Francais on us. Paris Saint-Germain. All right, guys. Well, there you go. We've covered a lot here. We have the Canadian women's national team in action tomorrow, right
Good to
here
see you, Petrillo.
on One
Good to have
Soccer.
you back.
I know. It's good to be back. Thank you. I am so happy to be back. Just a few more days to go, and then it's March, and then it's spring, and then it's summer. Yay! Thanks for tuning in to One Soccer Today.